Let's talk about the 3 best ways to structure your upper body workout. I guess when I look at how people are kind of approaching their upper body workout program, I see some very typical things. And it never ceases to amaze me how people will do the same stuff over and over and over, expect a different result. And whatever that is, what we call that, like the definition of insanity. Oh, yeah. And oftentimes they're just suffering, like they're hurting, like their body, they don't get the result they want, or they think they're getting a result that they're not probably getting. And it just goes down this wild path of I do this just because that's what I was told to do, or this is what I think I'm supposed to do. And it's just like an archaic kind of way of thinking. So anyway, let's start with you, CeCe. How do you structure your own upper body workouts and why?
Okay, so I'm going to preface this with, depending on where I'm at in life and within my training, I'll structure my upper body workouts differently. But I would say in general, I structure my upper body workouts with a 2-to-1 ratio of pulling to pushing. This philosophy is just in the fact that, I think society in general, we sit a lot. We're not nearly upright and ambulatory, moving around. So we have a lot of forward head posture and rounded shoulders. And I think everybody can benefit from doing more pulling, including myself. So when I structure my upper body workouts, let's say I'm going to work out 3 days a week. I will probably do 2 sets of pulling on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, followed by either a push on one of those days as well. And I'll make sure I get my horizontal pushing and my vertical pushing in addition to those pulls. I'm always going to be pulling horizontally, whether it's a closed chain exercise or an open chain exercise. For example, open chain would be like maybe a dumbbell row versus a closed chain where it's a body weight row where I'm on an inverted row.
Like you're fixed to a barbell
Exactly.
that's on a bench press height squat rack.
Correct.
Or J cups on the squat rack.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes. For a horizontal pull. For a vertical pull, maybe it's pull-ups one day, and then on a Monday, and then maybe on Friday, it's more of lat pull downs. Mm-hmm. And then paired with that, I'll put in my horizontal pushing. So maybe it's push-ups one day or loaded push-ups one day, and then maybe it's a dumbbell push, a dumbbell flat bench press, or a barbell flat bench press, or maybe it's an incline dumbbell bench press, right, and or a barbell incline bench press. But I will put them on different days. So maybe one day is more flat focused, and then Friday is more of an incline focus.
Gotcha. So those are like your primary movements, right? So you're pushing and you're pulling, mm-hmm, right? And I think a lot of what you just mentioned there is probably very familiar to people. Like they get that, they hear that. But what about the rest of it? So the key takeaway there was you're doing something every other day or, mm-hmm, 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. And the ratio of pulling to pushing is 2-to-1. So you're doing more pulling than pushing, mm-hmm, because up front anteriorly or in that frontal plane, we need to counteract what's going on there most of the day, right? Or most of life, which is all kind of happening in front of us. So, mm-hmm, we need to pay attention.
Driving, writing, typing, whatever.
Sitting at, mm-hmm, the desk, behind the computer, the laptop, now on the cell phone.
Sitting at the podcast.
And all that stuff, sitting at the podcast. So what else are you doing though? So for your upper body, what else are you throwing into your upper body workout to complement that pull push ratio and the things that are a challenge and or important for you?
I'll throw in accessories. So accessories would be more like breaking down certain movement patterns into their constituent parts. So, at the end of, let's say, a push-up, I might add a plus in there. And so let's say I'm doing a flat dumbbell bench press, and then I want to add some extra stability for my shoulder and scapular thoracic aspect of my body. I might do what we call press ups. So that's basically the last component of a push up and adding an extra, what we call protraction of pushing up through the shoulder blades and controlling it back down to work specifically the serratus anterior, which is a stabilizing muscle for your shoulder blade. I'll also do some rotator cuff exercises, some face pulls, working on external rotation of my shoulders and working on the eccentric component. So working at various joint ranges of motion, because we don't always necessarily function right here at a 90 degree or zero, or 90 degrees and up above our heads as well. So I'll do some of those types of things. I'll do other accessory, maybe some tubing, less weight specific, but still having some tension and resistance from other modalities to work multiplanar.
What about the pipes? What are you doing for the bis and the tris?
Well, whenever I do any kind of pushing and whenever I do any kind of pulling, I'm automatically getting my biceps and triceps.
Okay, Arnold.
So
sometimes, if I have the time at the end of a week or something, I'll throw in some bicep specific or tricep specific. But for me, general health and fitness and longevity, I won't necessarily make the time to do that. That's not as important for me, because I know I'm getting my biceps and my triceps when I'm doing rows and pull downs, and when I'm pushing dumbbells up over my head or barbells and those types of things, or doing dips. I'll be getting them, but they're more ancillary.
So I think this.
And the other thing is, I think for me, I know my biceps get overworked. That's probably one of the most overworked body parts, in addition to our abs, in the gym. So I don't necessarily focus on it.
Yeah. So it's also to provide context here. You're not training to be a bodybuilder, right? You're not training to purely impact your aesthetics on a daily basis. Yours is maintaining and increasing strength where it's appropriate and what's important for you at the time. The other context to this is you got some history, right? It's like you don't have the healthiest shoulders in the world.
No.
Right? There's been some stuff along the way that I know has created some major issues for you. So you're being really cognizant of that at this point in life based on all the activity that you're doing before. I mean, how many Ironmans did you do?
Oh, I can't even tell you now. I've done multiple half Ironmans, and I've done, I think, 2 full, maybe 3 full Ironmans, 2 full Ironmans. But yeah, I mean, I've dislocated both of my shoulders. So I'm very conscientious about what I do, how I do it, making sure I'm hitting my chest and my back and my shoulders from multiple angles to make sure that I maintain healthy, strong shoulders, because I don't have shoulder pain.
Right.
And I don't want shoulder pain.
That's important. Yeah.
And I have decent mobility. And I can still reach over my head. I can put my suitcase in the top bin when I get on an airplane. I can get on the floor and move around with my kid and do things. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's general health and wellness, but it's also staying very strong, because like here's an example. Like I see you doing pull-ups in the gym at least 2 times a week.
Minimum, I like to do them 3 times a week though.
Yeah. So at least 2 times a week I see you doing them, and half the time they're weighted, right? So at least half the time they're weighted. So there's a constant strength component that we're adding to this, but it's not craziness. We're not doing anything nuts. So again, a really good way to structure a workout if you've got maybe some of that type of history, but also if you're just training for general, again, maintenance of strength, maybe some increases in strength, but general health and wellness for the long term, for that longevity, so that you can do the things that you want to do. Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. So in terms of structuring your own upper body workouts, how do you do it?
Well, for me, I had AC joint pain for a good year and a half, maybe 2 years. I tried to push through it for a couple months, trying to relearn form and just kind of tweaking a couple things. Didn't really help. So I really got into looking at my structure, what was going on. Come to find out it was my hips, right? So a lot of people don't know, if you're in in-flare, out-flare, and your hips and your sacrum's rotated, it goes up to your shoulders and rotates the opposite direction. So if you're on a bench and your pelvis is rotated to the left, your shoulders are rotated to the right, and one's going to be pressing out more, you're going to over time have shoulder pain, right? That happened to me, and I just pressed this way for a long time, and I really had to take a step back, focus on, again, the tissue quality in that area, because it became so fibrotic around the AC joint, trying to just keep all of that intact, and it was inflamed. working on retraction and depression of the shoulder before I press. So doing like an inclined face pull, working on the mid and low trap fiber.
Before you pick your major movement like push movement for the day.
Yeah. So like I'll come in, I'll go through some basic mobility stuff, maybe some shoulder cars, like some shoulder circles, very controlled. After that, I'm going into like a banded face pull or rear delt, external rotation, kind of multi-joint movement. I try to add into the external rotation into the face pull. Yeah, it's there, but I really focus on it. Mm-hmm. And again, you can do these exercises and not get this result. So it's more of the intent, right? Really making sure my shoulder blades are working. I'm watching, I'm looking at the mirror. I'm not just, talking to my friend. Yeah, doing this, right? I'm really focusing. And then when I get into the bench, what is supposed to be happening? What was I lacking, right? For me, it was lat tension, right? Using my back. A lot of people like, what do you mean using your back? You're doing chest. Dude, your back does a lot in the bench press, probably more than your chest. Let's be real. Like we're locking those shoulder blades into depression.
I hear what you're saying. Like, so from an overall mechanic,
like from an isometrically, right?
Yeah, like
stabilization.
For sure.
They're working super hard.
Yeah, you're not rowing.
I hear you. Yeah. They're not the prime mover,
exactly,
but they're the prime stabilizer.
Exactly. And so just learning that exercise and kind of that cue and really focusing on it. Yeah. And to this day, I still do a warm up, straight arm lat pull down or just a lat pull down, the shoulder circles, the face pulls. And yeah, that's what I focus on before, just to have healthy shoulders.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily the choice of exercise that we're talking about here. It's the structure of the workout that we're talking about here, and how you put together the movement patterns in preparation for the other things that you're going to do, and then how you follow up those things with the things that add on strength or add on stability or add on.
Well, that's great that you said that, right? Because you're talking about the exercise doesn't need to change. Yeah. Like I actually did change it a little bit. I increased the flat. I went to a slight incline.
Yeah, to take the pressure off. There's
pressed for a bit,
GH joint,
and then brought it back down. But yeah, I mean, you can manipulate. Like you don't have to press from a flat position if your shoulders hurt or if it's just not good for you. Yeah,
or barbell press for that matter.
I don't, and so that's the interesting thing. So here's how mine is similar and different in terms of what I feel is one of the best ways to approach this. And I'm going to take this from the perspective of the dude that's near 50 years old, that's done a lot of heavy lifting, power training. I've fallen off my bike. I've raced down the hill on my snowboard at ridiculous speeds and ate shit. I've been in car accidents. I've done a lot of stupid shit to my body over the years, unfortunate stuff that's created issues for me. Plus things slow down. My joints are worn out now. They're tired. I'm tired. I don't recover the same as I did, despite all the things that I do to mitigate that. There are still challenges. And so one of the things I drives me nuts when I see these younger coaches, particularly male coaches working with male clients, is, they'll get to like, we've talked about work structuring our upper body workouts, and they get straight into the bench press, right? And like, oh, we're going to start with the bar, and then we're going to throw the 130, then we're going to throw, plates on, and then we're just going to we're going to build up. We're going to do our build set there. I have to tell you guys, so for you younger guys that don't fucking get this shit, you doing that to an old man like me, that shit fucking hurts. It hurts, man. Like I'm not ready for that. Not that I can't bench press. I can get out there and bench press, and I can reasonably. I can say I could probably bench press more than any of the coaches here at any given day on any time.
I could agree.
Right.
With that.
So it's not that I don't have the strength to do that. Yeah. It's what it does to my body when I do it, because I just mechanically. My body doesn't work the same. And from a resiliency perspective, it isn't quite the same. So my point to this is very similar to you, Jeff. I spend a lot of time before ever doing anything on my upper body day, warming up my entire body. Like I try to get loose, and that it looks very geriatric at the beginning. I'm just kind of slowly moving and finding out where my tight spots are for the day. The ones that I already knew about, but the ones that might be lingering from my previous workout or from whatever previous activity I was involved in. If I had a long day on the shooting range, that certainly impacts me the next day. If I had a day on the bike, or even just like driving. Those type of things impact how I'm going to approach the next steps, but it starts out with very slow total body movement. I will work through some of the shoulder cars type movements if I'm up top, thoracic movements to wake things up, to lube stuff up, right? To start to get that synovial fluid moving through my joints so that I am in a position to now start to load, right? And it's like you're oiling the squeaky wheel, right? In doing those things. So I'll take it very slowly. And then I don't move into the big again, like bench press or even dumbbell movements first, I actually back off and try to do a little bit more isolated, specific movement. Like I like to start with like if I'm working like a push day, I'll start with like a chest fly to kind of warm up the chest, but then I'll do what you mentioned, CeCe, there is I'll make sure I'm getting lots of pulling. So if I did 10 chest flies as a warm up, I'm doing 20 reps of some type of maybe vertical plus horizontal pulling to get my scaps working and basically those shoulder mechanics working in the way I need to. And I'm trying to stay very, very in touch from an intention perspective of what is happening there before I then move into more of a challenging, more traditional push. And to your points, I don't do flat bench anymore. I don't even do flat dumbbell bench anymore. It's uncomfortable for me. Both labrums are torn. The biceps tendons are, to your point, CeCe, get very fired up very quickly if I'm not careful from an overuse perspective. My elbows from gripping and things over years, like they get fired up. So I take the time to really walk through some of the real more basic stuff. I don't use flies as a primary movement. I use it as a warm up movement, also activation movement. Before then I move into maybe heavier incline dumbbell chest press on the slide incline, as you mentioned. My push-up movements, or my combination of, more contrast from like a big weighted movement to maybe even more of an explosive movement, but not until I'm confident that my body knows what's going on and I've primed it, for lack of a better term, for the movements that I'm about to take it into. So this might not just apply to the old guys like me, right? I think this can apply to a very novice lifter who isn't in touch with those shoulder mechanics or isn't in touch with what they're supposed to be feeling when they're doing these particular movements. So while the selection of exercises is important, I think the preparation before you start to do this selection of exercises is extraordinarily important. I think it's one of the most commonly overlooked things that are out there. And it's not sexy. It isn't generally sexy. I mean, sometimes I'll pick up the mace and I'll swing the mace around a little bit and people think that that's cool or whatever. For me, it's not really cool at all. I have to do that because if I don't do that and then I go to my heavy pulls or my heavy pushes, I'm feeling there's a consequence for it the next day. So that's how that's how I sort of approach that program. So I think for a lot of people, they look at their program, right? If they've purchased a program and they're getting a program from a coach or whatever else, and it's like, bench press, right? And then flies, and then incline dumbbell press. And then, you're moving on to your triceps, and we're missing let's make sure the body is ready to accept that stuff so that, as to your point, Jeff, like just doing the program doesn't get you the result, right? Just doing the exercise doesn't necessarily get you the result. So back up, understand where your body is, peel back the layers of the onion, what's important for you, and try these different approaches and see what works best for you, because there is no one size fits all. But key takeaways. So double the amount of pulls to pushes, right, for you. CeCe, Jeff, let's make sure we got great activation. We've got good body awareness, and we've got good tissue quality to go into these movements. And we've woken things up so that when we get there, we're actually benefiting from the exercises that we have chosen to do, whether it's an upper body routine or anything else for that matter. And, in my case, I think it's just be aware of where your body is for that particular day. And if you need to make a fucking change, because you can already tell that shoulder's a little aggravated today, I probably shouldn't do this. Don't be afraid to change it up and come back to it later.